Welcome back to the Prep Pastors Podcast. I'm the real Kirk, and we're hanging out with the real Phil. How you doing, brother?
Good. It's
Good.
hot here.
Yeah, you said that last week. Has it gotten hotter?
No, it's a little cooler, but it was 30
Nice.
today. Where I was walking into the studio, and I'm running air conditioning in the studio so I can stand to be here.
Well, you have a lot of lights and cameras and computers running, so
That's true. Yeah, I only have
I
about
am in a
half of them turned on, but yeah.
I'm in a basement. I'm in a basement in the communist state of Illinois. But I'm still ungovernable. So I'm on a I'm on a
Yeah.
I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission, serving a brother, serving a brother that needed a little bit of help. So I'm fixing a garage door that went crashing down. So have skills, and your friends will feed you well. That's what I'm trying to
Diesel's expensive these days, so
say. That's true. That's true. He is paying the travel costs. So that is nice. So that's paying for the travel costs and buying the groceries. So I am thankful. So hey,
yeah. So
so it,
in places where people are paying attention to what's happening in the world, there's a lot of hectic shifting and happening and prepping, and
yep,
people are on the move. I'm
yep,
was just frequenting the gun store on my way in this morning, and a lot of people trading in the unnecessary toys to get essentials
hmm
for the near peer threat that is coming at us.
yep,
So,
absolutely. And if you would you hazard a guess on what that threat is?
uh, well, it's a little tough to say who's going to show up first, but they all collect a check from the federal government.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Yeah. Your
I think we're
government is your in this case. And they just continue to prove that every step of the way.
every
And
step.
if you're not awake to the fact that what's happening in the banking industry right now is a direct product of actions taken during the Obama administration, then you are clearly not
You're
one,
not paying attention.
financially savvy, two, listening to the wrong people. So
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. It's
the
it's
short answer is
absolute madness.
it really doesn't even matter about getting your cash out. I would just say spend it. Spend
Yeah.
it now. Spend
Yeah.
it.
That's exactly what we're trying to do
The
right now. Is we're
the
trying to get
Federal Reserve,
get
and
all the
we told you on the show over a year ago that the Federal Reserve is implementing a cryptocurrency that is going to be required. So U.S. dollar cash, as in paper and
yep,
coin money, will
yep,
no longer be allowed. It will no longer be a legal tender. And because it's not backed by gold, it'll be completely worthless um, whenever they do that. And Biden passed the executive order approving it, what the Fed had
yep,
already decided.
yep,
And in light of what has been happening on these runs on the bank, which is what's kind of triggering some things. So banks get themselves into bad financial positions because they are more worried about diversity, equity, inclusion, and um, a bunch of pole smoker butt munchers than actually doing their jobs. And people get hired because they have blue hair and identify as something that they're not.
yep.
And those banks are the ones that are failing
That's
because
right.
they don't know what the heck they're doing. And
Correct.
they are heavily invested in green energies, and they donate money to terrorist organizations known as Black Lives Matter, who are terrorists. They fund Antifa, which again makes them terrorists. But because they're Democrats, Democrats in
Right.
power will always protect other Democrats. The liberals, the
Correct.
Democrats, we don't give a flying fuck about the difference anymore.
That's true.
You identify with either one, you are my enemy. You are the enemy of our
Well,
country. You are the enemy of Christ followers. And if you continue to identify in those categories, you can no longer claim you didn't know.
Absolutely.
And
And
so
and
that's
then
what's
and then
failing.
I mean, there are some clear standards of what God calls us to do with our enemy, right? But that's not the conversation we're having right now. We're having a conversation of
Might
you have to identify
start there.
an enemy. Yeah. I think the fact that we have been completely unwilling to identify them as the enemy has meant that we have not been able to deal with them. So we've just been going along, well, they're our countrymen. No, no, they're not. No, they're not. Well, they're Christians
They,
too.
they
No,
are the enemy
no, they're not.
within.
That's right.
They're not.
They're
Just
not. They're
because
not.
they put an Instagram photo of coffee next to a Bible that they haven't read does not
Right.
make them a Christian. Just
Correct.
because they wear a
Correct.
T-shirt, as I do all things through a quote that is taken out of context, does not make them a Christian. And I don't care how long people say, well, you can't judge or you can't know. We can know things through their fruit. And if
Hmm.
you are voting for a party that kills babies, you are not a Christian.
That's correct.
God has clearly not changed your heart, and you should start there.
And that is a
So
biblical
get your
truth. You
panties in a
all you
row
have to do.
and go march your way down to your little woke liberal bank and pull
Mhm.
your money out that isn't there, because it
All
won't do any
and
good. Here's the point. So for everyone else, I'm not necessarily saying do pull your money out, don't pull your money out. I don't care. Spend your money is what I
right.
say now.
Yeah.
Invest in things for the near future and in the
Right.
forever future. So, in other words,
Yes.
if you need to do something to get yourself to a place where you can serve Christ appropriately and be obedient, well, then that might require some money to do that. Don't worry about your
Correct.
retirement fund. We're going to be lucky at this point for any of us to reach a retirement age.
Right. Oh yeah. There's
The
not going to be.
Jews that did not leave Germany were worried about what would happen to their businesses and their retirement funds.
That's right.
None of them really got to retire.
Agreed. Well, they got
All
retired.
your
They got
monies are
retired.
that's they got retired. Yeah, they got to go to Club
They,
Med.
they got to go to Club Med. They got really yeah. They got gas chambers and they got giant ovens and that's what they have
Experimenting
planned
with
for.
women in your
That's what.
children. You need a man to lead your family out of the
Mhm.
enemy's territory.
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, and for
So,
those of you who think that
in
it's going to be easy, it's
state like
not. We
Illinois,
took.
you might want to start strongly considering things.
I mean, like for those of you who think it's going to be easy to lead your family out of those areas. I mean, like I took a
There's
100%
a
pay
cost.
cut. My wife took a 40% pay cut to come out of the left coast, and I'm going to make some people angry, and I just don't care, where they're overpaying teachers for substandard education, right? And I'll say it again, they're overpaying teachers for substandard education due to a place where they're probably underpaying teachers for quality education. So that's where we are, and
Homeschool kids.
I would much rather be in a place where I can grow my own food in the ground, where I can raise my own meat, where I can make those things happen. I mean, I went to the hatchery this week, just 3 days ago, and I picked up another 27 laying chickens. 25 of them are hens, and two of them are roosters, so that we can start making our own chickens. And not all of those will be mine.
We
About
definitely
half
start
of.
a plan to either have a good association, a working relationship with someone local who can do that,
Mhm.
or start figuring out how to do it on your own. Because
Right.
what's the drop dead date? It's like a month out before it'll be illegal to mail chickens
Yep,
in our
it's coming,
country.
you guys. Yep, it's coming.
No
And
longer
so
be
if
able to
you don't
mail live. So you still be
live
able to do
live
eggs and do that, put them in an incubator. That thing will still
right
possibly
live
happen, but
poultry,
it's going to kill
live
all these
poultry, you
companies.
will
So
not. It is. It's gonna break the back of Murray McMurray Hatchery, Jinx Hatchery, Cackle Hatchery. It's gonna. And if you think, oh well, that's okay. If you living in a state that where Murray McMurray is, or Jinx, or Cackle, right? So Cackle's a Missouri company. I live in the Ozarks. You know, within a day's drive of that, okay, well, no big deal. I'll go to the hatchery and I'll buy my own, right?
They
Not if that
survive.
business goes out of not if that goes out of business, not if they're crushed,
Yeah.
because most of their business comes from out of state shipping. Murray McMurray, the well over 80% of their business is out of state shipping. And they have effectively made it illegal to ship poultry, live poultry, like you said, you could still ship eggs. But the gestation rate on shipping eggs is not great. You're really lucky if you get 40%. Like you order
Oh,
100 eggs, you're really lucky to get 40% of them to ship to hatch. And then if they hatch, you're still going to lose about 10% of those.
there's still a
So
survivability rate. Yeah. Chicks.
yeah, I mean, so if you want to get into chickens, you better get into them right now, okay? And I
Chickens
would
aren't
say,
everything.
and
Boy, they're a lot. They're sure awfully useful animals.
they are
Um,
they are awfully useful.
these
I'm
little
and I'm
tiny
actually
little
having a hard
creatures.
time. I'm having a hard
Yeah.
time getting meat birds right now.
Well, there's the rush.
I gotta come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones in the world doing this.
No, no.
And there's a rush. I mean, again, like I'm trying to order stuff from OpsCore and Gentex, and
Hmm.
you know, and we have our base set of armor, but I'd like to have backups. I'd like to have full kit to basically
Hmm.
outfit someone.
Yep.
Um, that stuff's not only skyrocketing in price, but just lead times are really out there. I'm at the
Absolutely.
point now where I'm not really realistically something that's going to take 3 to 4 months or 6 months to get to me. I'm not sure that we have that. So um,
Yeah.
I'm not sinking a bunch of money into something that's going to take that long to get to me. I'll find an
Correct.
alternative solution.
Correct.
So again, things are ramping up. What's happened here is these woke liberal douchebags just got a whole bunch of natural consequences for their bullshit behaviors.
Yeah, but
And
they
like
didn't.
any
The White House has already guaranteed that they're going to get their
throwing
money back.
tantrum over it. Well, saying one thing, doing another. There is a cost to this. It's like it's like yeah, you're going to get your money from an insurance company when you get in a car wreck. Well, you're never really made whole.
Yeah.
Um, you're maybe it's not a complete financial loss, but it wrecks
Right.
months and months of your life, and it
Right.
does end up being a net negative, loss. So
Correct.
even with
Yeah.
everything involved, for instance, the latest bank that just crashed this morning, um, the some of the larger, I think it's about 5 or 6 banks have got together and they're committing $1 or $2 billion each to cover those losses
Right.
beyond the FDIC limits. Because again, it's another one of those woke, liberal douchebag banks where they're giving tons of money to terrorist organizations and fund Antifa.
Yep.
Um, and so because of that, uh, if you bank at, any of these other banks that are covering them, which I saw Wells Fargo, and I just don't remember because I don't care too much. It's going to continue to happen and accelerate. It's not happening just here. Like we saw
Right.
with Bank Swiss, it's happening in Europe
Yeah.
as well. Europe just raised their interest rates like our Fed. The Fed is probably going to raise interest rates again. I mean, again, they said they're going to. They're not
Yeah.
done getting to where they said they were going. The only
That's right.
question is just how much would they do at the time. My
Yeah.
prediction is another quarter, minor, but it is going to happen. So um, again, if you bank at Wells Fargo, one, you never listen to me, and two, you're probably stupid. Um, you know, you're now
Yeah.
paying higher rates because Wells Fargo just gave $2 billion to a
Yeah.
woke douchebag bank that failed because of their own policies.
Yep.
Because the person in charge of their diversity portfolio management, um, which was supposed to keep them from going under, um, is a blue-haired Nazi
Yeah.
who got hired because she's a female with blue hair.
Yep.
Uh, if you are on, I've been researching more into who's running the various regional Fed offices,
Hmm.
because I'm just flabbergasted at the whole Western region, which I am stuck in.
Yeah, you
We're
are.
based out of San Francisco, and if you go to their webpage, their Twitter pages, any of their executive board members, they're all blue-haired liberal douchebags that talk nothing but diversity, equity, inclusion, gay rights, you name it, transgender,
Yep.
the children. That's all they talk about. They're in charge of all of our banks.
Yep.
They are why these things are happening.
Yep.
So the system is collapsing. And again, you can pull your money out, but it's paper money is going to be worthless here pretty soon. I give it 12 to 24 months at most, but it's probably somewhere between 12, 18 months. It'll be illegal to use paper money.
Yep. And I think that we
So
will
spend it if you
probably
got it.
see, we'll also probably see in either a reclaiming of gold or an illegal a season of not being able to use gold either. So I would say for the long haul, and this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor,
Using
but
gold, using gold even
I still
now is quasi illegal,
right.
right? You're not allowed to exchange. You're allowed to get invest in gold like a commodity. That is
Hmm.
allowed. What's not legally allowed is to barter with gold in
Right.
exchange for goods in our country, which is not to say it doesn't happen. It happens extensively. It's why they're pushing us into this Fed-based government cryptocurrency.
Correct.
And I shouldn't call it crypto. It's really not crypto. It's just an
It's not.
electronic currency. So
It's
just
just
like your
digital.
dollar,
Yeah, it's a digital
it's
currency.
money
That's
on,
what it is.
yeah, money in the sky that doesn't really exist. It's numbers in a computer. And the biggest thing is they want to be able to turn that tap off immediately if they don't like you or what you're doing or who you believe in or how you do things.
Yep.
If you don't bow and capitulate to whatever mandate, I mean, they didn't like when they mandated vaccines and people didn't have to do it. But when they turn
Right.
people's bank accounts off, like they did in Canada,
That's right.
what they showed is Canadians, of course, we all know Canadians are weak and spineless. So it was no
Pretty
surprise
spineless.
when every single one of them backed backed down, gave up, apologized, and surrendered
Right.
immediately. Uh,
Yes.
it won't go quite so smooth here, but they're trying. Doesn't mean they won't do it. Doesn't mean it won't have a cost and a financial um, burden. It's just
Right.
it's going to suck. Is the thing. Get ready for the
Yep.
suck. So
Get
put
ready
your
for the
food
suck.
away, and you're going to be one of those that's going to resist. Well, then get the means to do so.
That's exactly right. And now is the time to, while your dollars are still working, if you're looking for ways to spend, if you're talking about food, connect with a local farmer or rancher, buy yourself a beef, stock your freezers up, right? We're talking about a slow burn financial collapse. The most likely they will keep the lights on. So you're still going to have access to your freezer for a season, those kinds of things. So I would say, if you can
Until you
buy
can't
beef
pay your
from
mortgage.
until you can't
About a
pay your
year ago, I
mortgage,
talked about a year ago, I talked about getting debt free to the point where, you know, you weren't concerned about how you were paying your mortgage when you didn't, have the ability to do so. The
right.
reality is, if you don't own the property that you're on, which if you have a mortgage, you don't own the property you're on. Um, and
Yep.
even if you don't have a mortgage, you still don't own the property you're on. You
Yeah.
are beholden to the taxing authorities that are appropriate for you. So that depends on where it
Yes.
is. There are places in this country where the only taxing authority is the feds. And
Yes.
right as of now, there's not a federal um, property tax.
Right.
So
Yet
that doesn't
they're
exist
talking.
anywhere.
Right.
It doesn't exist anywhere. It's hard to implement things. It takes time to implement things. It's not to say that there won't be maybe someday. That's really hard to say. That's a hard thing to pull off. It,
Hmm.
our country has completely collapsed in order for that to happen because we don't
Yeah.
have a land taxing authority in our
Right.
constitution. There's nothing
Right.
in our set of laws that allows for that to happen.
Right.
So, they're not exactly the most desirable places to live, but they might be a good place to go. Um, if need be, if you truly want to live in an area if you're not going to participate in whatever the Fed based coin. I still can't remember. They are starting to have names for it.
Yeah, what
Basically,
are they
digital
calling it? I
currency.
can't remember. Digital currency. Yeah, we got to
Uh,
stop calling it crypto because there's no security.
EBC something.
There's no blockchain.
No, no. The biggest thing is just that those in authority, which authority gets designated all over the place, whether it's some blue-haired bitch that works for the IRS or dog shooting ATF agent or um,
Right.
you know baby killers over at the FBI, however you want to see it.
Yeah.
That authority gets delegated or taken or uncontested all over the place. The point is, it's really easy to flip switches and turn things off. And
Correct.
those are things that are possible now. They're not quite as easy, but they're very possible now already in our current banking system. If you have your
Yes.
money in an FDIC bank, they just call the bank and say, turn that off. We'll tell you why later. And
Yeah.
99% of them will do it.
Yeah.
So
That's right. That's exactly right. They will. They'll just do it. They'll just capitulate to the government. Because they hold all the strings. And I will say, you and I have disagreed in years past about credit unions. But I got to tell you, there's pros and cons to credit unions. I have a small credit union. It's still in Oregon. We don't keep much money there, but they are a lot less beholden to the federal government. Now, that means they're also not as insured. So if something were to happen, you'd probably get screwed a whole lot easier, but at least you wouldn't be getting screwed on the federal level as badly. I don't know. But I will say this though. Can we change gears just really quickly off of finances? I saw something wonderful yesterday. I have good news. I have good news. How often do we have good news on this channel? Well, besides the good news of Jesus. So yesterday morning, I got up super duper early because a dear friend of mine, um, super awesome Army veteran, needed a ride to the hospital. He had a procedure that he was doing. And aside from the fact that he got some very miraculous answers, which was also wonderful and really, really good. So we got some really neat stuff happen for him. We walked into the hospital and we did our obligatory, you know, go over to the little desk and you put your stupid paper mask on, blah, 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 blah. Right. And I'm just the chauffeur. Like I'm not here to cause a stink. I'm not here to make a statement. We're standing in line and in this waiting room and at 6 a.m. Like there's already a line at 6 a.m. If you think there's not a medical crisis going on, just pay attention. Okay. So anyway, this, I saw a group of doctors, nurses, and the receptionist at the desk. Their phones all beeped at the same time. It was one of those like, everybody looks at their phones and everybody simultaneously rips their masks off their faces. And a doctor stood up and said, everyone, we are no longer required to be wearing a mask in this hospital. I want to see you smile. And they all just like spiked those things into the trash can. Doctors, nurses, hospital administrators, like it was like the coolest. It was so cool that I got to be there when their all their phones simultaneously went off. They got a blast text saying no more requirements at that particular hospital. I mean, if you live in a leftist state, don't get your hopes up. Like you're still gonna be dealing with that. But it's cool. It was neat to
it's somewhat,
experience it.
yeah. Imagine, but also matters about who owns the hospital. So yeah,
Right, right. So
those are
yeah,
decisions
yeah,
made at the board level.
yeah. Well, and it was a state. It was a state level too. So like the state of Missouri said, you don't, you do not have to mask at the hospital any longer.
That's good.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
been
hard for them. It's really hard for them to push that agenda when you've got high-ranking doctors testifying in front of Congress going, the studies are in. It didn't help. It didn't make a dang bit of difference. We tortured a bunch of children. We wrecked a bunch of lives. We fired a bunch of teachers, and it just didn't help, period, at all. So pretty hard to stand on policy that has had its legs cut out from under.
you underestimate the stupidity of a liberal.
Oh, well, I mean, certainly.
I mean,
So,
I saw one just today. I was coming out of the bank after doing my daily withdrawal of cash, and of course, it was not a Subaru, but it was something similar to a Subaru. So you always know when you see something like that, you know, good chances you're going to see something stupid. But there was this blue-haired 20-something-year-old female um, driving by herself in that
oh
car
yeah,
with a mask tight, like the 95 style where it's pressing in, where if you actually wear it properly to make that seal. Most
100%.
people don't wear it properly. Never even seen them wear properly.
Right.
She was actually wearing it properly. So,
I saw
but
one.
yeah,
We
I just
left the hospital. We left the hospital
I
yesterday,
talked
and
to
we
him and
turned
lose
and we
them.
turned left, and we met somebody. As soon as we came out of the hospital, that just dropped the policies. We met one of those blue hairs, stretched out mask across. I mean, it's like ugh, and all alone in a big van. I was like, you guys, that's just silly.
Special kind of stupid.
Special kind of stupid, but it was really neat. It was a really neat
Yeah,
experience yesterday
avoid
to
being
be at.
around people like
That's right. That's right. Well, you and I mean, we have
that.
tried desperately to not go anywhere near medical facilities if we didn't absolutely have to, if it wasn't some kind of emergency, because we didn't want to be put in a position where we would be forced to do something that was stupid.
I've worked very hard to be able to handle emergencies on my own.
Right. That's exactly right.
I won't
I'm all,
walk into a that is committing such idiocy willingly. You'll have to drag me there unconscious, which is the only
right.
way I'll end up there. And to be honest,
Absolutely.
the amount of doctors that just lost their minds, which is understandable because a lot of doctors took these shots early on based
Yep.
on a lot of people saying things that were very convincing. So I'm not faulting people, at that point. And then let's be honest, a whole lot of people had brain aneurysms and other things happen because of the ouchie Fauci.
Yep.
And from that point on, is anybody really in the sane mind? They're not able to make good decisions anymore.
It's really an interesting situation, isn't it? Where you look at people that have gone down the rabbit hole, and you have to wonder, like, did this jab actually alter them and make them bananas, or are they so ashamed that they've been altered, and it's just a portion of the downward spiral of sin that Romans talks about, being given over to your sinful desires, and so for me, it's one of those things where it's like, have they just been given over to this ideology, or did this thing actually modify who they are? Like, did it push them over the edge? I don't know the answer to that. I think we'll probably find out the truth about that when about the time we roll into heaven, because I know the federal government's never going to stand up and own their dishonesty and share things. I have been seeing some people who are finally being very, very hard on Fauci, and I'm glad to see it. He's pushing back on all of the daily shows and all of the, he's
I'm
coming
surprised he
coming
hasn't
back
fled the
on.
country.
He should. I mean, if he's wise, I think he should. But that's just my opinion. I can't stand the guy. I don't think he should be able to be here anymore. But that's
Well,
just
I'd
me.
like to see all of his assets get frozen and perhaps redistributed to the millions of people that he has caused harm to.
Why not?
Uh,
Why not?
and that's just not just to point out the most latest harm of this China flu pandemic and his role that he played in there, including in the creation of it.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
just going back to the damage that he did in the 80s with AIDS, he
Right.
set research back decades
Yep.
through his own, very similar decisions that were very selfish and profitable for him.
Yep.
And they set, the cure or at least meaningful treatment for HIV back decades directly
Yep.
because of his decisions that he made money on. So,
Correct.
again, we should have term limits in all things, including, um,
Absolutely.
DOD employment. I would say there are very few things that we, Not to say that we yeah, no, I universally support a term limit, including an employment term. The reality is we do have it in the military. I was gonna say except for the military, but no, we do have it in the military. You are only allowed to serve for so many years, and there are very few exceptions that allow you to serve for more than those set of years, and then they only just limit it by a little bit. And they do from time to time for force shaping change those
Yeah.
terms. I've been twice during a time where they backed out that if you hadn't progressed in rank by a certain amount of years that you were shown the door, given
Hmm.
an early reduced retirement, and it was not by choice.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I do support term limits, and for the most part, I don't think anybody should work for the federal government more than 10 years. We can't allow them to be entrenched.
Yeah, I think that's probably a really good
So,
point. It's funny. I was just chatting with my friend about term limits this morning over breakfast. I'm torn because I am about freedom in the context of if I think that someone is doing a good job and I want to continue voting for them, I feel like I should be able to continue voting for them. But more than that, I think that the entrenchment, when you look at the Pelosi's and the Dianne Feinsteins, and you look at what they've been able to manipulate, Biden, what they've been able to manipulate inside of their systems because they've been able to dig their claws in for 30, 40, 50 years. It I'm not as torn. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I get it. I like the idea of like, hey, if I want to keep voting for someone, I should be able to. It's bigger than that, and so
well,
it's
put
just
them in a different
it's
role. Um, you know,
sure,
get out. Maybe you have to change branches. Get out of the executive branch, head to the legislative branch, head to a different branch,
see,
work DOD. Again, we already have this that you serve in the military to a point past a certain point. I don't remember what the point is. It's not full retirement. It takes a congressional waiver in order to be appointed into a civilian position. We have
correct,
these in place already because originally this was a part of our government's design was to
right,
limit, which is why
right,
Washington is the one who set that term limit of 2 terms,
yep,
8 years for the executive presidency role, because that was the idea
hmm,
that would happen. And we've had term limits in the past. It's that people like Pelosi and Biden get rid of them.
right,
So it's time to bring some things back. It's time to bring change. But the reality is you have to have a government to change it. And our government is arguably already fallen. It's already occupied by communists. There has been a coup that took place, and it wasn't the one that they lied to you about a couple years
correct,
ago. Um, I was warned about this. I went to a meeting with one of our Alaska uh, representatives, and he said, Don Young, and it was a close personal town hall meeting, and Don Young said, these Democrats now are not the same Democrats. These are a militant
yes,
communist party,
correct,
and they are eliminating anyone that does not support their very firm agenda, and they are a zero compromise,
yeah,
agenda driven militant organization. They eat
absolutely,
their own, they chase off anyone who doesn't agree with them, and it is their way or no way, and they
right,
lie, cheat, and steal. And this is coming
yep,
from, at that point, he'd been serving some 40 years, which of course I don't support, but wasn't that much longer he was killed. So, you know,
right.
he went around, he
We
went around Alaska giving that same message and then weirdly died a couple months later. But
Yeah,
that's what they do
it's
to
interesting
Alaskans. They kill.
because you talked about Washington setting the standard for a two-term limit. He set the standard, but it was years later before they implemented the 22nd Amendment, which was what set it to two, locked it
Put it
to
in
two,
law.
because like Franklin Delano Roosevelt served 3 terms. He served
Mhm.
12 years. There was others that I think served 1 term, came back, served 2 more. Those kinds of things.
Right.
And so and I'm not disagreeing with you in any way, shape, or form. I just know that
And
somebody.
that's something that happens in my local government. Is that they take turns, so they'll serve for 1 or 2 terms, and they get timed out, and then they have to take a term off, and then they'll serve again.
Yeah.
And so we have the same 2 to 3 politicians that really just take turns running everything.
Right. Right.
Um, it's ugly. And every once in a while, get somebody in there, and the rest of them spend that entire term figuring out how to get rid of them. So
Correct. Yeah.
politics are ugly, and 90% of the people involved, maybe even 100, are horrible, ugly people themselves.
Well, I know it. I know that's true, and it's why I've been saying for months, if not over a year. I think the only reason we're going to get drug into World War III is to prevent us from going to civil war. I think that's we've talked about it before. We're at a cold civil war right now, and
We're in a civil war. I guess the terminology, I'm less inclined to say a cold civil war now, and more inclined to say we're in the bounce back, or we're just starting to realize that a coup has taken place.
yeah,
We've
that's
had a
exactly.
change
There
in
you go.
government, and we're just starting to find out that the people that we think are in charge are not in charge,
Right.
including some of those that are still serving, thinking that we serve in a republic. A
Right.
coup has taken place, and we really don't have the government that we thought we did. And one of the biggest
Correct.
indicators to a lot of people is going to be when your money no longer spends,
Yep.
when the money that you have, they've been making it more and more worthless every day.
Hmm.
But they're going to make it illegal for you to even use it, because at that point they're expecting you to wake up that they're in charge now. You're not in
Yep.
charge. This is no longer a
Yep.
government of the people.
Yep.
This is a
You're
government
talking
of
about
the coup
so
leadership.
So what Phil's talking about right now is something that China implemented a long time ago called the social credit score, where if you're not saying the right things, if you're not living the way they want, if you're not fully capitulated to what they have decided is right or wrong, then they turn your bank accounts off. They make it so that you can't buy groceries. By the way, we know that that is something that's
Travel.
going to
You can't
happen.
get on a bus, you can't go to a movie theater. Like,
That's
there's
right.
lots of
That's right.
examples of that happening in China.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that that's something that's going to happen in
It's already
biblically.
on
Like
your
we
phone.
know that it's absolutely on your phone, and so we want, you don't be surprised by this. Like this is something that we've been told the Bible said was coming.
So,
You have to when it talks about, you won't be able to buy or sell without taking the mark of the beast. I mean that's please understand that that's not I don't believe, maybe Phil disagrees with me. I don't believe that that's a literal dragon is going to come and tattoo your forehead. I believe that, I had a teacher say it really, the best. I don't want to pull out my credit card because I don't want you seeing my numbers, but, she said it really, and this was back when I was in high school. She was like, well, and she breathed on the back of her credit card, stuck it to her forehead, and she's like, it's the number that's on everyone's mind. And I was like, oh, that sucks, right? And so, but it's not right. She's not wrong. And I mean, I think that it's coming to the point where they're going to have such total control. They'll be able to just turn it off, and you better be able to barter. You better have what you need to work things out with your neighbors. I mean, I love the fact that
better
I
live
live.
in a
I
location where you're able to not owe someone money. Again, if you have a
exactly.
mortgage, and this is what frightening to most people, is the realization that what would happen, how long would it take to happen if you could not pay your mortgage? Because for whatever reason, the currency required is not something you either have or are willing to participate in, because everything you have
Correct.
is going to be gone very, very quickly.
Correct. That's
And
exactly right.
you look around, and in your church, 80% of even the strongest true Christ following church, 80% of those people are going to cave.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, 80% of them caved during COVID. I mean, you look
Yes,
at,
they did.
so I mean, you look at the fact that, the vast majority of churches has essentially dissolved to nothing at this point post COVID. There's a handful that are still growing, and I think those are the ones that are.
All underground churches happening. I think that churches do not look like the brick and mortar church that the church thinks they are.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, I certainly have plans, as a pastor who's not currently in a pulpit. Like, I certainly have plans to having a under the radar, non-official. I don't ever want to run a 501c3 again. I don't ever want to have anything tied to the government. If you're going to give so that you can expect a tax exemption, I don't want your money. God doesn't want your money if you're giving
I'll
so
take
that you
money
can get it.
from my enemies to hand out to the brethren.
Sure. But I mean, if it's like, but understand, God
And
will
I'll pray
provide.
2 years under the assumption that I'm working on my nonprofit before I'm actually required to get it.
Hmm.
It's time to
That's right.
start thinking in a short term survival mode.
That's exactly right.
The enemy is mobilized and they are committing acts of war against you. So what's your plan?
And the majority of
Sitting
the church
oh,
in America is asleep.
not a plan.
The enemy's mobilized, and the
Mm.
church in America is asleep.
Well, they're very worried about diversity and inclusion. And y'all go
That's right.
do that while I
Yeah.
continue to set aside food and ammunition and
Yep.
the tools to actually fight and defend God's
Correct.
people in the war that is already happening around us.
Absolutely. 100%.
So you should be
100%.
training.
No.
And back toward what Kirk says routinely, you should be getting in shape. You need to get
Yeah.
ready. At the very least, you need to
Go
be
for a bike
able
ride.
to hump a pack all day,
That's right.
be on the move, carry goods, do something physical in exchange for a meal.
Yep.
Start figuring out what you're going to do. Back in the Dust Bowl days, you think camps are going to happen again. You're going to bug out and find yourself in a flotilla of like-minded homeless people.
That's right.
Be ready.
Yep.
Figure out where you're going because
Yeah.
you're just not going to own the land that you think you're going to own. Even without a mortgage, it's only a matter of time before you can't pay your taxes or
That's right.
whatever they're going to invent to get rid of you. Because that's
That's
exactly
right.
how they did it in Germany.
That's exactly right.
They just kept inventing new rules until no one could follow them, and everybody
Yep.
got sent away for not following the rules.
I would really here's the real truth, guys. Um, I want to give you some homework. I want you to pick up a copy, download the audiobook, or pick up a copy. It's intimidating. It's intimidatingly long. You need to read Bonhoeffer by Eric Metaxas. Like, that is, if
About a
you want to,
20 hour, 20 hour, yeah.
yeah, if you want to take a look at what it's going to be like, you need to look at Europe. You need to look at Germany, specifically between the Treaty of Versailles and the end of the Third Reich, like that window, the rise and fall of Hitler, like those like, you need to look historically at that
Mm.
time. Bonhoeffer talks about, Metaxas talks about Bonhoeffer, um, as a little boy going out and checking the one family chicken to see if it laid an egg that day, going out and celebrating when he could get one rabbit that they could make a soup out of for a family of, was it 6 or 7? I can't remember. It was a big family, and those kinds of things. Um, that's really important for you to pay attention to, because his dad was a psychologist. His mom was a homemaker. And so when his father was getting paid by the government, and the government basically couldn't pay its debts anymore after the Treaty of Versailles, and
That's
and,
the
and the
rule.
German dollar collapsed, the franc collapsed. He was a doctor, but they were completely impoverished, and he had no
Right.
skills in gardening. He had no skills in hunting and fishing. He had no skills. He could go and psychoanalyze people, and
Yeah. Believe me, that one. hits home as we're a 2-person family, both with professional licenses that are not going to be needed.
Yeah, but
You
you're
better
also
have
very
other ways.
skilled. You're very skilled people. You could start
You,
making leather goods. You can start,
well,
turning wrenches and
I
fixing
do.
things. You can,
I'm able to do all of those things, but yes, uh, it really there's a whole realigning of economies that happen when you screw them up.
correct.
And the one universal rule is there will be haves and have nots, and the middle ground will just eliminate. They'll just spread. Some people are going to get much more rich, and that's not going to be the majority of the people.
Right.
Most everyone else is going to scream the other way towards destitution and poverty.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it'd be nice if there was a quick burn scenario where wherever you're living, you'll just stay there because everyone will leave you alone. The whole system collapses. There's no way to collect mortgages, but everybody can't pay their mortgage, right? But that's not the
Correct.
reality of how this is going. We're already in the slow burn. So the
Correct.
next thing that starts to come is the persecution of small minority groups, because again, they
Yeah.
come for a small group and then they come for a different small group and and the whole time everyone else is ignoring it because they don't want it to happen to them.
Correct.
So they
Correct.
chisel away. No, there aren't enough people to
Right.
stand up.
That's right.
So
That's exactly right.
pick your
Yeah.
group and get
You're,
ready to make it. It's going to be you and a small group against a lot of other people. So
you would
have your
talk about the
plan.
golden horde, man. Like you do not want to be in front of the locusts. The people become locusts and eat the food to the ground when there is poverty. I mean, you look at what has happened as people flee out of Ukraine to Romania. I mean, they just eat every ounce of food that's in an entire village, and
Again, yeah, this wake up to what's happening in the globe. We have had groups like this. It was Africa, then it was the Middle East, and then more recently it's been Ukraine. But Ukraine has done this a couple of times as they flee from Russia, taking them over. I mean, we had it in the 90s.
yeah,
A lot of refugees coming out of Ukraine, moving to America.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, again, these things happen and they go in waves, and it's nothing new. Again, this is
no,
history repeating it. It's
right,
just another cycle of history. And I think
hmm
they're getting closer together, by recorded history wise, but
sure,
and we're starting to do things more on a global scale as opposed to regional, as has been our
certainly,
past world history. But
certainly, yeah. It's
well,
it's
anyway,
one of those things.
parting advice then, or what do we have for in this time? Get your cash, don't get your cash. I think you're playing the same game no matter what. Spend your cash, get your
I
cash,
I agree.
save your
I'd say
cash,
I'd say spend it if you can. Spend it on
armor,
what you
ammo,
need.
food.
Yeah, get your garden ready. I mean, it's spring. It's springtime, guys. Like it's time to start thinking about getting your vegetables planted. Even if you live in an apartment, get some grow bags and put some tomatoes and some, stuff out on the porch so that you can
I would
learn the
say,
skills.
yeah, at least start working on it. Do what you can indoors. Do something. We're coming into a time of hyperinflation. So we've been in inflation times for a while, and the hyperinflation is coming very soon.
Hmm.
And in hyperinflation, you need to pick the resources that you can barter or trade or grow yourself, or again,
Hmm.
hoard now to use so that you can reduce the amount of things that you have to buy. Because when it's
Right.
$100 to buy a gallon of milk or $100, I mean, I tell you now, to fill my diesel pickup is $220 now. And it's
Yeah.
been as much as 300 to 400 before.
Yeah.
um, it's headed that direction again. So you're going to have to pick and choose because you're not going to be making
Agreed.
more money.
Agreed.
What are you going to do with limited resources that you have? And
Right.
so to survive those times, again, some level of debt sometimes is good if it was smart, but have the
If
means to
espe-
figure out what you're going to do again.
especially if
What's
it's
that?
debt that's not leveraged against your home. If you've got debt that's not leveraged against your home,
Or
right
leverage
now,
it all against the home you intend on leaving and pay off your
right
other property and don't use a credit union and don't be
there you
stupid
there
and
you
let
go
cross collateralization happen.
there you go.
So Wells Fargo
And
does it anyway. Don't bank with Wells Fargo unless you're stupid.
correct. And I think that yeah, you got to be really, really strategic with who you're banking with right now. I think that's absolutely true. And I think if we were to tell you who we'd be close to, too close to financial advice, that's not we're not legally allowed to give you. We would, but my advice would
I
be
can
to
give you
just
a healthy bank. So characteristics of a healthy bank are that they are in more than one state, but not all of the states. They need to. It is not hard. They need to be exist on the federal stock exchange, but it should be a minority position, just a part of what happens as a publicly traded company.
correct,
You could choose to not go that route, but it's easier to monitor the health of your bank if you can watch their stock ticker every day,
correct,
because that allows
correct,
you to see what is happening at that bank as far as their health, and it requires them to submit an audited set of financials on a regular, usually quarterly basis that lets you maintain and see where they're spreading your money. So that's why I like publicly traded banks, because
right,
you get to see within, you get a glimpse within. Most of
correct,
them are not lying on those financials because they get audited. So
right,
there are some characteristics of safe places to put your money. They should be
hmm
places that are not well known for easy places to get loans.
yeah,
So the place that will, make a four-wheeler loan to anybody, that's not the bank you want to use. The
correct,
bank that has a reputation that they only loan money to people who don't need money, that's a conservative lending bank and generally very friendly. So there are some characteristics of safe places, and I would
yeah.
pick with those. And if you have more questions about that, you could reach out.
Yeah, please do reach out. But be strategic, do your research, get out of these big giant conglomerate of banks that are going to be, they'll sell you up the river just to keep their hands in the federal pocket. You want to get as far from that situation as possible. And really and truly, if it's not already
Also,
too
banks
late,
that are off of the FDIC system. So I'm not
yeah,
talking about credit unions; they have their own version of FDIC.
hmm
I'm talking about banks that are not credit unions and not banks. They are private money holding institutions that don't play by the federal rules.
right,
Those are relatively safe places under the radar to keep money.
yeah, agreed. I think that if you're already set on bullets and bandages and beans, then gold is a good place to be. It won't be
Like
initially when
silver for the day-to-day trading, gold will be more like what you're going to do to pay your landlord.
that's right. There
Gold
you
is
go.
a big purchase item. So if you think you need to transact in large items, or if you're going to produce something that is at the level of gold, then I would
hmm
have some. But if you're going to, buy and sell milk and eggs and whatever to the local whoever,
Then silver
um,
is better. Yeah, absolutely.
silver
I agree.
is the way to go. And I wouldn't buy less than 1 ounce increments, and I would definitely get some 10 and larger ounce increments.
Correct.
And for there, avoid currency coins, right? Don't get into the junk silver thing.
Right.
Um, those are not good plays to. Those are not good ways to transact. Avoid the mint currencies that are anything other than just certifying the bullion.
Right.
So you don't need to have a fancy eagle this or everything that, or
Yeah. Don't pay
British head.
premiums for that stuff. AP
Don't do it.
Max is
We're not into
1 ounce
collecting.
bars, 10 ounce bars. Those are great.
Yep. You could do it now, but it's already kind of too late to be acquiring those things if you don't want someone showing and knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, we know you have 100 ounces of silver or 500 ounces of silver and 100 ounces of gold. It's ours now." So if you don't
Yeah,
want that to exist, then you are going to have to buy on the local level.
that's right. And
It's
you
too
will
late.
pay more for it.
All the union organizations are already reporting.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So, and don't forget, lead is
Or
a
do
precious
like me
metal.
and buy a whole bunch and then put it in front of a claymore.
Oh, there's that. There's that.
Hey, I'm for it.
Um, I mean, don't
I want
forget,
to
lead
get
is a
that.
precious metal, and you will be able to
Right now
you
it's
can
readily
barter with
available.
with
It's not going to be that way much longer.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Get
Well,
it?
guys, listen. Phil, thanks for your time, man. Folks, if you have questions, put them in the comment section. We want to hear from you. We love it. In fact, actually, if you're enjoying the show, and you've made it this far, do me a favor, hit the like button, do the things right, leave a comment, just tell
That's
us that,
true.
tell
We
us we're
need
doing.
to see the views and the likes, otherwise we wonder if it's worth our time.
That's exactly right. So we really, really appreciate you guys. We got a couple more weeks before a live broadcast, but we try to stay very, very current. I mean, this episode will go
First
up
Friday of the
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
So
Yep.
we're not pre-recording things months out and then pushing it out in batches. We do it the day before it airs. So listen, we love you guys. We
Although,
want you to get prepped.
if you see like 3, 4 in a row of obviously really old pre-recorded, because we'll tell you, then probably something happened to us.
That's right. Hey, and just a
You'll hear
reminder,
about it in the
um, just a reminder, I don't look at kitty porn ever, and I would never kill myself.
look at any porn ever. You'll never
That's right.
find any of them on any of my devices unless it was planted. And they're only even ever going to find 1 or 2 of my devices, not all of them. I'm
That's
going
right.
to enjoy. So we are already in this. I'm in it to win it, and
Yep.
I'm going to have a good time. So
That's right.
for all you kitty porn watching ATF agents out there, bring your A game.
Bring your A game. That's exactly right.
Bring 20, because if I don't take 20 of you out, it's just going to feel like a disappointment.
I feel like when I step through the gates of heaven, if I didn't get at least 20, then they're gonna maybe send me back and make me do some more. I don't know.
I'm down with that, but
All
yeah.
right, guys, we love you. Get prepped.